So imagine you are standing in a courtroom.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, it is a chilly Tuesday morning, let's say October 14, and the clock on the wall reads exactly 9:51 a.m.
Very specific.
Right. And the room is just dead silent, and you are watching an entirely innocent person get sentenced to life in prison.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
It is. And the crazy part, it happens because a highly confident eyewitness just sat on the stand, looked the jury dead in the eye, and swore they remembered the defendant's face perfectly.
Which is just a devastating scenario. I mean, it's one that plays out far more often than we care to admit, honestly.
Exactly.
Hundreds of innocent individuals have been wrongfully convicted worldwide, and, the linchpin in so many of those cases is just the absolute certainty of someone's memory.
Right. And that courtroom nightmare, it isn't just something out of a true crime documentary. It actually happens every day. So today, for our deep dive, we are tearing down this comforting illusion of a perfect memory.
Yes, we are.
And we are using some genuinely groundbreaking research by pioneering psychological theorists Cara Laney and Elizabeth F. Loftus to figure out exactly why our brains lie to us so convincingly.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. Our grounding material today is their work in Chapter 15 of the NOBA Discovering Psychology 2.0 textbook, which covers eyewitness testimony and memory bias.
And I think we really need to anchor this to why it matters to you, the listener, right now. Because, you might not be sitting on a jury tomorrow.
Hopefully not.
Right. But think about the last time you were in a high-stress situation. Maybe it was a massive final exam or, a brutal performance review at work, or even just witnessing a heated altercation in your neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Your adrenaline is pumping.
Exactly. And you rely on your memory to navigate those complex dynamics. If you don't understand the cognitive vulnerabilities at play here, you really can't be a reliable protector of objective truth.
Which is a lot of responsibility.
It is. We have to learn how these mental mechanics break down. Otherwise, we just risk perpetuating a completely flawed status quo, not just in the broader justice system, but in our own lives.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if the human brain isn't just some flawless digital video recorder, what exactly is it doing when we, quote-unquote, remember something?
Yeah, well, that assumption right there that memory is a passive recording device is actually the root of the entire problem.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. We like to think we experience something, it gets filed away on a mental hard drive and we just double-click the file when we need it.
Like pulling up a saved video.
Exactly. But that entire foundation is cracked from the very first second an event occurs, during what we call the encoding phase.
The encoding phase, so the moment it's happening.
Right. To understand memory distortion, you have to look at how biology and the environment corrupt that initial recording in real time.
Because eyewitness identification usually happens under immense situational pressure.
Totally. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of that witness to a violent crime. Your brain detects a threat, right? Instantly. Your narrow cognitive attention focuses entirely on the immediate danger.
So you get tunnel vision.
Basically, yeah. If someone pulls a weapon, your brain locks onto that weapon. The source material defines these as estimator variables.
Estimator variables.
Yeah, factors like lighting, distance, or the presence of a weapon. They are inherent to the situation. No one can control them, and they just drastically degrade the initial quality of what your brain is visually encoding.
See, I have a hard time buying that, honestly.
How so?
Well, if I am staring at someone committing a crime, or even just yelling at me, for a solid 5 minutes, that is a long time. You're telling me I can stare at someone's face for 5 minutes and my brain won't capture that baseline data just because they're holding a knife?
It feels incredibly counterintuitive, I know, because we implicitly trust our own eyes.
What?
But the biology tells a completely different story. Under severe threat, your amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, essentially hijacks your cognitive resources.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your visual cortex is literally being starved of the processing power needed to encode subtle facial features, like eye color or jawline shape. Because, evolutionarily speaking, that data doesn't help you survive the next 10 seconds.
Okay, so it sounds like trying to memorize the license plate of a car that is actively swerving to hit you.
Yes.
Like your brain prioritizes jumping out of the way over objective data collection.
That is the perfect analogy. Your biological systems are trying to keep you alive, not, prep you for a cross-examination. So the memory is already heavily degraded by those uncontrollable estimator variables.
It's already falling apart.
Exactly. But then we introduce system variables.
And what are those?
These are the regulatory factors that law enforcement or institutional authorities actually can control. And this is where a bad situation often becomes a catastrophic one.
Because the police inherit this degraded, Swiss cheese memory from the witness, and instead of protecting it, the system accidentally corrupts it further.
Yes, and often without even realizing they are doing it, law enforcement officers might use suggestive questioning techniques.
Right.
Or consider the standard photo spread. When witnesses are shown a lineup of photographs.
Like in every cop show ever.
Right. There is a profound psychological compulsion for a witness to pick someone. They want to help. They really want the bad guy caught.
Sure.
So they feel immense pressure to select a person from the lineup, even if the actual culprit isn't in the photos at all.
Which means the true perpetrator remains completely free, while a blameless life is absolutely destroyed.
It's tragic. And there is a vital 2022 article published in the journal Law and Human Behavior by Adele Quigley McBride and Gary L. Wells that tackles this exact mechanism.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They looked at how modern evidence-based lineup procedures can actually safeguard against this. A massive part of the solution is using specific individuals known as foils.
Foils, also called fillers, right?
Right, fillers. And running the lineup double-blind.
Okay, fillers being the innocent distractors placed in the lineup. But wait, why does it matter if the lineup is double-blind? I mean, that's a term we usually hear in medical trials, not police stations.
It matters because human beings constantly leak information.
Leak information, like body language.
Exactly. If the detective administering the lineup knows who the suspect is, they might unconsciously lean forward when the witness looks at photo number 3. They might hold their breath.
Oh, man.
Or they might say, "Take your time," in just a slightly different tone. A double-blind lineup means the person running it has no idea who the suspect is, which completely eliminates that unconscious bias.
That makes total sense, because any tiny signal could push the witness.
Exactly. And if we pull this out of the police station, think about how this applies to your daily life.
Okay.
Imagine you are in a high-stress corporate environment and HR is investigating a major workplace incident.
Yeah.
Or say you're a student navigating a tense academic grievance.
Right, the stakes feel huge in those moments.
They do. And if an administrator asks leading questions, or if you discuss the event with your peers before giving a formal statement, your initial fragile impression is easily warped. Institutional procedures that mimic these structured, double-blind methods protect everyone from the devastating consequences of false accusations.
Okay, so if the brain is left with these massive blind spots, because of the adrenaline, the weapon focus, and these system variables, what does it do with the blank space? It can't just leave a skipped frame in the movie, right?
No, it absolutely refuses to. The brain hates a vacuum.
So what happened?
Instead of leaving a blank space, it instinctively fills in the gaps with plausible details to create a cohesive narrative. The brain continuously updates past experiences with new information, and that leads to systematic distortions.
Which brings us to the misinformation effect.
Yes, one of the biggest issues.
This is the phenomenon where encountering misleading details after an event actually overrides and alters the original memory.
Exactly. It becomes virtually impossible for the individual to distinguish between what they actually saw with their own eyes and what was suggested to them later on.
That is wild.
But external misinformation is only half the battle, honestly. We also routinely fall victim to source monitoring errors.
Okay, source monitoring errors. That's when you correctly remember a piece of information, but you assign it to the completely wrong origin.
Right.
Like confusing a really vivid dream with something that actually happened to you.
Or merging details from a fictional television show with a real-life personal experience.
Wait, how does that even happen? How do we confuse an episode of a TV show with reality?
Well, we all know what a schema is, right? It's your brain's blueprint for how the world works. It helps us interpret and predict information rapidly.
Okay, yeah.
But what's terrifying is how those schemas act like a silent autocorrect for your memories without your conscious awareness.
An autocorrect.
Yeah, so if your internal schema for a bank robbery involves a man in a ski mask carrying a duffel bag, your brain might literally insert a duffel bag into your memory of a real robbery you witnessed.
Even if the guy didn't have one.
Even if the thief was just holding the cash in his bare hands.
Wow. There was a brilliant quote from the cognitive psychologist Ulrich Neisser in the NOBA source material that summarizes this perfectly. He said, "We do not record holes in our experience. We fill them in with what makes sense."
It perfectly captures the active, reconstructive nature of memory retrieval. It is not a reproduction of reality. I mean, even your most vivid, deeply personal memories are likely fabricated composites
The composites of what?
of actual experiences, unrelated suggestions, and your own creative imagination just filling in the blanks.
And I imagine stress and emotion just pour gasoline on that fire.
They absolutely do. Let's look at another 2022 study. This one was published in the Journal of Applied Research in Memory and Cognition by Dia K. Dev and Victoria Wardell. They explored the mechanics of how negative emotion alters cognitive processing, and they demonstrated that intense negative feelings selectively enhance the central details of an event.
But at a cost,
A
right?
huge cost. It simultaneously impairs your broader contextual memory.
So it's like a spotlight effect. The spotlight gets incredibly bright on one specific thing, but the rest of the stage, the context, goes completely dark.
Right. Think about what that means for anyone operating under immense pressure. Imagine you are taking a high-stakes professional certification exam or facing a brutal evaluation at work.
Floating bullets, yeah.
That negative emotional state triggers a biological cortisol response. You might vividly remember the hostile tone of your boss's voice.
If that's the central detail.
Exactly. But you completely misremember the core instructions they gave you because the context was just wiped out.
So, under stress, I might clearly recall a highly specific scientific fact. But because my contextual memory is impaired, I suffer a source monitoring failure. Like, I mistakenly attribute that fact to a random, untrustworthy Reddit thread I scrolled past rather than my official textbook, and then I second-guess myself and fail the question on the exam.
Which is exactly why recognizing these pervasive memory pitfalls is so crucial. Once you know how the spotlight effect works, you can implement deliberate strategies that actively safeguard against those cognitive biases when you are under pressure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because listening to all this, it sounds like memory isn't a read-only PDF file.
Not at all.
It's more like a live Wikipedia page about your own life. And absolutely anyone, including your own stress levels, a leading question from HR, or a police officer can jump in and edit the page without you even realizing it.
That is an incredibly powerful way to look at it. And honestly, it raises a rather terrifying question.
Yeah.
If the brain naturally alters memories to make sense of the world, is it possible to intentionally introduce completely fabricated data into that Wikipedia page and convince someone it is undeniably real?
And the science says yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Decades of rigorous psychological research have empirically established that entirely false memories can be systematically implanted into healthy human minds.
Into perfectly healthy minds.
Exactly. This is proven in controlled laboratory experiments over and over again.
Let's talk about the methodology of those landmark studies, because it is wild to me that this actually works.
It is wild.
The classic example from Loftus is the traffic accident study. Researchers showed participants a video of a minor traffic accident. Afterward, they interviewed them, but they changed a single descriptive verb depending on the group.
Just one word.
Right. For one group, they asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? But for the other group, they asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other?
Hit versus smashed.
And changing that single word significantly increased the likelihood that participants would falsely recall seeing broken glass at the scene of the accident.
Which is crazy.
Right, because there was no broken glass in the video. But that subtle linguistic adjustment completely reshaped how the event was reconstructed.
It completely rewrote the narrative architecture of their memory. But, researchers have gone much further than just adding broken glass to an event that actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
They have successfully convinced subjects that they experienced entirely fabricated events. The most famous is the Lost in the Mall study.
I've read about this one.
Yeah, where researchers implanted a memory in participants of being lost in a shopping mall as a young child, wandering around crying, and eventually being rescued by an elderly woman.
See, I have to challenge this. I read this in the material and I just thought, there's no way.
We're skeptical.
Very. If a guy in a lab coat sat me down and told me I was lost in a mall as a kid, I'd say, you're crazy. I would know if that happened to me. How do they actually pull that off?
Well, you would reject it if a stranger just told it to you outright. But that's not how the methodology works. The researchers contacted the families of the subjects first.
Oh, tricky.
Very. They gathered 3 true childhood events, and then they crafted a 4th, entirely fake event, getting lost in the mall. They put all 4 stories into a booklet and told the subjects, Your family provided these memories. We want you to read them and write down everything you remember about each one.
Oh, wow. So the deception comes heavily endorsed by their own family.
That's the key. Over a period of weeks, the subjects were interviewed multiple times. At first, most participants said they didn't remember the mall incident.
Because it didn't happen.
Right. But the brain hates a vacuum. They kept trying to remember it. And slowly, their internal schemas started supplying plausible details. They know what a mall looks like. They know what it feels like to be scared.
So they build it piece by piece.
Exactly. Over time, the subjects began to string those elements together until they were providing vivid, emotional descriptions of the fake event, firmly believing it had actually happened.
Consciously recalling details, emotions, and dialogue for an event that never actually occurred in reality.
What's fascinating here is what this tells us about the subjective nature of truth. These empirical findings carry profound consequences. They prove definitively that an individual's subjective certainty and their emotional intensity are never reliable indicators of factual, historical truth.
So just because someone is crying on the witness stand and swears to God they're telling the truth, it doesn't mean the memory is actually real.
Correct. Subjective confidence frequently increases over time despite a severe lack of factual accuracy. Over continuous delays, these manufactured recollections harden into absolute certainties.
You just get more confident.
Right. And outside the courtroom, when individuals recount false memories with high confidence, they inadvertently convince others of inaccurate narratives, spreading misinformation through social networks as though it were gospel truth.
That's like a virus. The cognitive therapist Aaron T. Beck noted this beautifully when he said, "The mind is a superb instrument, but it can turn against its owner and create illusions."
It's a great quote. And by studying these documented experimental consequences, we can develop much better safeguards against cognitive manipulation. And the good news is we are seeing those safeguards being built right now.
Which actually brings us to the third recent study we need to cover. This is a 2022 article in Law and Human Behavior, authored by Smith, Ayala, and Yang.
Yes, a very important study.
They evaluated alternative lineup structures, focusing on something called the rule-out procedure. And this directly tackles how our brains try to force a narrative.
Exactly. The central problem with the traditional identification format, say, looking at a standard grid of 6 faces, is that it encourages witnesses to make relative judgments.
Meaning, they look at the lineup of 6 people, and instead of relying on pure memory to say that is definitively the person, they compare the lineup members to each other.
Right.
It's like a multiple choice test where you don't know the answer, so you just pick the least wrong option.
That's exactly what happens. They pick the person who looks most like their memory of the perpetrator relative to the others.
But what if the actual perpetrator isn't in the lineup at all?
Well, the witness will still pick the best fit, resulting in a false identification. The rule-out procedure is a mechanical intervention designed to stop that comparative process entirely.
So how does it actually work in practice?
Instead of showing all the photos at once, the administrator shows them sequentially, one by one.
Okay.
And for every single photo, the witness is explicitly asked, can you rule this person out? They have to make a definitive yes or no judgment on that specific face before they're allowed to see the next one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it completely breaks the brain's ability to compare faces against each other. It forces a reliance on absolute memory rather than relative judgment.
And the applications for this go way beyond police work. Think about a manager reviewing a lineup of potential safety violations caught on a grainy security camera, or, a teacher trying to identify which student threw something across the classroom.
Right, it happens everywhere.
If you try to view everything at once and pick the best fit, you are going to fall prey to those relative judgment biases.
Absolutely. Implementing procedural mechanics like the rule-out method ensures that everyday individuals are not unfairly targeted by our inherently flawed memory processes.
So what does this all mean? I want to challenge you, the listener, with a critical thinking prompt directly from the source material.
Ooh, let's hear it.
How would you feel if you discovered that a cherished childhood memory your family always talks about was actually just a story inspired by an old photograph?
I mean, it is deeply unsettling to realize that the bedrock of your personal identity might just be made of shifting sand.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the biological failures of the encoding phase, how weapon focus starves the visual cortex, and how estimator variables prevent us from capturing the whole picture.
Yep.
We looked at the reconstructive nature of memory, how schemas and source monitoring errors cause our brains to act like a dangerous autocorrect, filling in the gaps with plausible, but totally false details.
And we explore the terrifying reality of false memories. We saw how easily a single word like smashed or a suggestive interview over a few weeks can implant completely fabricated data into our minds. Data that we will eventually defend with absolute subjective certainty.
But the goal of this deep dive isn't to leave you feeling helpless or paranoid about your own brain.
No, not at all. The goal is empowerment. Understanding these fragile mental mechanics prevents future systemic failures of justice. It allows you to build better, fairer frameworks in your clinical practices, your corporate offices, and your everyday interactions.
Exactly.
When you know exactly how the system breaks down, you can put the procedural guardrails in place to protect objective truth.
Before we wrap up, we want to give a quick thanks to chapter authors Cara, Laney, and Elizabeth F. Loftus, the NOBA textbook Discovering Psychology 2.0, and the Diener Education Fund for making these invaluable resources openly accessible.
And if we connect all of this to the bigger picture, it raises a very important question, something we really have to consider as we look to the future.
What was that?
Well, we've established that our memories are constantly overwriting themselves based on new information, and that source monitoring errors already allow us to confuse fiction with reality. So, what happens to human memory as we enter an era of deepfakes and hyper-realistic AI?
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying thought.
Think back to that courtroom we discussed at the very beginning, the confident eyewitness.
Right.
Now, imagine if you see a fabricated, emotionally charged, AI-generated video of an event just hours after it happens. If your brain is already wired to fill in the blanks with plausible details, will it eventually reconstruct that digital illusion into a vivid, unshakable personal memory?
Oh, man.
And if it does, how will justice ever know the difference?
That is something to mull over on your own. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.